Hi guys, welcome to this Golang tutorial on esoteric tech. Thank you guys for joining. In this video, I'm going to be discussing structs. Up to this point, we've covered a number of different types. We've discussed the built-in types, which include things such as integers, strings, and booleans. We've also discussed slices and arrays. While each of these types are very useful, you'll often find yourself needing to construct your own custom data type, which is essentially a container that holds various types of information, also known as a struct. So that's the focus of this tutorial, and I'm going to follow this outline. First, I'll discuss what structs are and why you would use them. Then I'll go through some coding examples to show how you define and use structs. As always, if you guys find this tutorial to be helpful, please do like and subscribe. That support goes a long way, and that is the feedback I need to know if these tutorials are providing true value. So thanks for your subscription, and let's get started. Structs are basically a container that holds a collection of information, and you would use them in cases where you have a set of related data that you need to group together. You will often hear people make the comparison between structs in Go and classes, which are found in other object-oriented languages. I admittedly sometimes make that comparison myself, but I want to stress that it's really important not to get wrapped up into believing that these are the same things. Go does not have objects, they don't have classes, and they don't have inheritance. But that doesn't mean that Go doesn't borrow from some of the features and ideas of classes in object-oriented languages. Let's hop over to the code and I'll show you guys how to declare and work with structs. Often in real code bases, you'll have some type of struct that holds the information or defines information for some type of user entity, like a person or a user. So I'll start off with an example like that here. Whenever you define a struct, you have to use the keyword type followed by the name of the struct, and then followed by the keyword struct, just like this. Within the curly braces is where you define the fields of the struct, and this is kind of similar to declaring a variable with the var declaration, where you put the name of the variable or struct first, followed by the type. So here I've defined a struct called person, or of type person, and it has three fields: a name, age, and pet. And note that there are no commas between the field names. So whenever you're actually just defining a struct, you do not include any commas. Now that we have defined this new type person, we can actually create an instance of this type. And there are a couple ways that we can do this. The first is using the var keyword. Here I've created a variable called Fred, which is of type person, and so this syntax should look familiar to you. And one thing to note is that you'll see that although I've created this variable, I haven't given any values to the name, age, or pet. And whenever you create an instance of a struct and don't provide any values, those values automatically default to the 0 value type of whatever data type that field has in it. So if I was to print out Fred, you would see that name and pet are empty strings and age is 0. If you guys need a refresher on 0 default data types, I encourage you to review what I believe is the second video of this Golang tutorial series on Golang data types. The second way that we can create an instance of type person is by using the colon equals operator. So I'll do that here. And similar to above, you can see that I actually didn't define any values for the name, age, and pet field. And so again, whenever you don't define them, it defaults to the 0 value type. And just so you guys can see that, I'll go ahead and print those out here. Maybe it's hard to make out what that actually printed there, but that is an empty string followed by a 0 followed by an empty string. And then lastly, you can actually declare or create an instance of that type person and give values to the fields as well. Here I've created an instance of a person called Sam and printed that out. And a couple things to note is that when you actually create an instance and assign values, whenever you label these values, you include a colon between the actual field name and the value. And you always follow each field up with a comma. Even the last field there, you can see that pet still has a comma, although it's the last field in the struct. So just something to keep in mind. If you want to access or alter any of the fields of a particular instance, you can use the name of the variable followed by a period and then the name of the field. So here, even though I declared Bob earlier in a series of separate statements, I was able to assign values to each one of the fields. And then down here for Sam, although I assigned values when declaring this instance or creating this instance of type person, immediately after I was able to change the value of that field and set it to 21. And you can see the results of each here on the side. That also means if we wanted to print out just an individual field, we could access it the same way. So if I wanted to print out the age of Sam, I could run that and it would simply print 21. So there's a lot more I could show you guys when it comes to the use cases for structs, such as marshalling and unmarshalling and working with JSON data. But for kind of an entry-level course or introduction, as long as you understand this, you'll have a good foundation. The last thing I'll show you guys is how to work with anonymous structs, which is something I think a lot of entry-level Golang tutorials fail to include. So up to this point, what you've seen is me kind of declare, first starting off, this new type, this person type. And you don't have to do that, actually. It's possible to declare a variable that implements a struct type without giving the struct type an actual name. And when you do this, this is called an anonymous struct. So here's an example of how you would go about that. All right, so here, instead of kind of creating a new type from the base type of struct, I'm really just creating a new variable of type struct. And so here I created a variable called user of type struct that actually had the exact same fields as our person type. And then I can just access those fields the same exact way. And then here I actually use the colon equal operator to again create a pet variable of type struct. But instead of actually accessing these variables after the fact, you can do this all in one go. But when you're doing it with an anonymous struct, you actually have to create a second set of curly braces. And then you can actually provide values to these individual fields. And so I've got two different ways of doing that here. And then, of course, I print them out. You can see the results over here. And that's pretty much all there is to declaring structs. Here I use the strings and integers as the data types, but a struct field can be of any type. It can even be another struct. So we'll get into more examples of that as we progress. If you guys have any questions, please let me know. Again, please do subscribe if you found this video to be useful. And I'll see you guys in the next video on Esoteric Tech. Thanks for watching.